You can edit that out if you want to. I'm sorry. That was maybe should.
We're gonna have more edits tonight.
We're going back.
What did you say?
All right. Starting the next segment.
Starting with our
Never mind.
lukewarm
Moving
take.
on.
What's our
Here we go.
lukewarm take of the day?
Lukewarm take
Luke?
and go. So this is episode 2 of the Church Bites podcast, where we're really trying to think through the ways in which church bites. So we acknowledge that, but yet we're people who value the faith community and a journey of faith. And how we start this podcast every time is with some local Fort Wayne bites here in our church podcast room. So, Christy, what do we have here tonight?
Tonight we have golden soup from the Loving Café, which I do believe is part of a larger chain. But the food is always good, especially if you have dietary restrictions.
I'm going to begin
allergies.
pouring this. Is it a soup?
Please do pour. It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a pureed soup. And it is.
Where's it from?
Delicious. From the Loving Café.
Loving Café.
Yes, it's on Coldwater, and I tried to remember the name of the plaza. I took mental note and I forgot it. So it's near
small.
Salsa
It's a little
Grill.
strip mall right there.
It is.
Coldwater and
Yeah.
Cook Road.
Sure. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Cook, Loving
That's
Cafe.
And,
I've heard is really good. I hear it has like a near cultish following.
Vegan cuisine.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't have to be. It is a vegan restaurant. You
Luke
don't have to be.
Do Luke and Austin want a little
do you
nibble
want?
here?
It's really good.
We've got
You
plenty.
don't have to be vegan to eat
spoons.
it.
Yeah.
Or to try.
I just.
That's unfortunate.
I was more upset that I got a drop on my pants. No, a drop of the soup.
You don't have to be vegan to go there, but there are signs about veganism, so just know that. The lady,
encouraging signs.
yeah, encouraging about being a vegan.
Nice.
I am not a vegan, just in case anybody's curious, and I'm close.
Vegan adjacent.
Vegan adjacent. My
Are you?
husband's
You're
got
like a pescatarian?
Yes, and my husband's got a dairy allergy.
Oh, this smells
I eat
good.
cheese. It's very good.
I like that. I don't like vegan food.
I'm
just gonna throw
drifting.
it out
With
there.
vegetables, Tyler.
Exactly.
It's just
That's what.
vegetables.
That's what
isn't going
I just
well.
said. But
Yeah,
we're gonna
it's
let
quite
Glenn
tasty.
get off the struggle
This
bus.
one's not as
and
sweet as
then-
it has been. But the person, there's always this lady to take your order, and she's just the sweetest. And
It's almost like a little curry.
kind of, yeah. It's got
like
a bit of
little
turmeric,
curry
maybe.
something.
It's really good. But
good.
for my husband is allergic to dairy, and everything there is safe for him to eat. And so that's just wonderful not to have to worry
And what is in
about.
this? You
Piece
said
of mind.
sweet potato.
I think sweet potato. I know
Squash.
lentils.
There's
Squash. There might be squash.
This does give off vibes of
Strong.
the Panera squash. The
It
squash
kind of
soup.
does, except I think it's better.
And I love the
Yeah.
Panera squash soup. So this is
Yeah, it's really tasty, and it's actually good for you. And I just
Too
got
bad
some
it's
on my
vegan.
shirt. So we're going to film with me having...
I'm
Tyler,
also.
it's your turn.
I mean, the good news is
spill it on my
Yeah.
shirt, or
I don't know. Glenn got his
Okay.
pants. I got my
I'm
shirt.
gonna be real careful then.
I like it. Christy, what other kinds of things do they have at this Loving Cafe?
They have all sorts of things. What I like
get
about it
comfortable
is it's not just... I'm going to have to take that off. Anyway,
I don't think the stain is on camera for either
You're
of us.
good. It's okay.
We're just going to...
Yeah.
There we
Don't
go.
worry. It's tiny.
It's tiny. There we go.
tiny.
I just really love this sweater. I got it at a thrift store, and it made my heart so happy because I like winter.
Wait, do you like to thrift?
Occasionally.
You are in the presence of the great thrift king.
Oh boy.
Wow. What's
The
your
great-
Which is your favorite?
Oh,
in
not
Fort
me.
Wayne?
No. I'm tooting someone else's.
What is your favorite
Tooting someone
in
else's
Fort Wayne?
horn.
Favorite store?
to thrift?
Oh man,
Should you toot someone else's horn?
that's a good one. I like all the Catholic ones.
Yeah, they're good.
They're very good. They still have the spirit of thrift. I feel like a lot of them have gone very
Sure.
mainstream. Prices have gone up. I just feel like the Catholic thrift stores
still have that thrift going. Actually, this was from one of the St. Francis ones.
They're good.
And I think it was like $3.
They're good.
Look how pretty it is.
So
yeah, that's my favorite. If I'm going to buy clothes, I either want to. This is going to bother me. I either want to thrift or like Plato's Closet, which is thrift adjacent. I hate buying new clothes.
Well, this is good.
Good, yeah. So the other things they have, what I like about the Levin Café, and Moo Over in Columbia City is also similar, but probably too far to get on the show.
Moo Over?
Mm-hmm. It's a vegan ice cream shop that does...
Cows eat it?
Indeed, yes. I just go chomp on some grass and alfalfa, which is a form of
the alfalfa shake.
The alfalfa shake.
It's the next best option after kale.
There's a lot of better options before kale. So what I was going to say is they don't just have like Impossible Burgers and, I don't know, fried onions or whatever. They have actual, for example, I love their blat. It's the bacon, lettuce, tomato, avocado, but their bacon is a tempeh bacon. So it's not like Impossible bacon or they have Impossible Burgers if you like, but they also have like a Philly cheesesteak and it's house made, like more actual vegetable blends. Versus, I've got nothing against like some of the more Beyond or Impossibles.
Okay, so that's at in the Columbia City place.
Oh no, that's
one.
both places. But the Columbia City doesn't have as much food. It's more an ice cream, like a dairy-free ice cream parlor. Do
they have ice cream at Loving Cafe?
They don't, but they have giant cakes.
Cakes.
Yeah, huge carrot cake there, so good. Their chocolate cake's really good too. Yeah, so I love their tempeh. Anything tempeh vegan? There. It can be.
Can it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Hershey syrup. Am I allowed to say Hershey's? Chocolate syrup that you often mix into your milk.
It's got corn. It's corn
you shouldn't
syrup.
Put it in milk if you're.
So it's vegan. You can just eat it right out of the thing.
Yeah, I make a lot of.
It's good for you. That means it's good for you, right?
That's exactly. Everything vegan is good for you. That's not true. I'm just gonna for specificity.
Okay.
Just so you know, arsenic is vegan.
That's exactly the example that came to my mind.
Yeah.
It is,
I saw like a sign or something about that. And it's like, you should eat bacon.
But no arsenic is served at the Loving Cafe.
No arsenic is served at the Loving Cafe.
Best.
Only love and very
we still have
tasty.
to rate it. I feel like we rated it last time.
You did.
We rated.
What was the rating system?
Tastiness.
It was 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10. 10 being the most tasty.
10 being super tasty.
1 being
a little saltier than normal, but I like it.
Not tasty. I'll tell you what's throwing me is I made a stew for supper, and it's very similar.
Oh, really?
And so, like, if I came in hungry, I think I would rate it an 8 or a 9. But because I came in not hungry and I just needed a dab of it, I think I'm going to go more 6 or 7-ish.
Okay.
Like, I could imagine eating it. So.
Sure.
Well, it's definitely the best vegan golden stew I've ever had.
Look at that.
But on the whole scale, I would say I'm going to go 7.2. 7.2.
It's a good one.
It's good. Very high.
Yeah.
Very high.
7.2. You say that, but I would be concerned about spending a lot of time with you if you consumed a lot of vegan.
Vegan? The vegan stuff.
A lot of
we
vegan
don't do
stuff.
That here.
I just feel like the aftermath would be for anyone problematic.
Yeah.
That's a Portlandia episode.
Oh,
Are we allowed to say Portlandia? I don't know.
Shout out Portlandia.
Okay, that's Church Bites. So now we're
saying things we're not sure if we're allowed to say. You didn't rate yours. You gotta.
Oh,
you gotta give it a number.
I mean, I brought it, so I like it.
You got to give it a number.
I'm gonna give it a 9.
A 9.
Okay.
A 9.
All right.
Yeah. I really like it. Okay.
Hey everybody, Austin here. Real quick, before we get back into the episode, we'd love to continue to be in conversation with you all. So down in the comments, let us know what you think. Let us know how things are going. If you got any specifics on anything we're talking about, that'd be awesome. Also, like and share the video with your friends. You can also send us an email at churchbites@stjoemin.com. That's churchbites@stjoemin.com. And we're going to be having some live events right here in Fort Wayne coming up. So check the show notes, check the description on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. And there'll be some details down there about these events. And hey, let's get back to the episode.
We're going to have more edits tonight.
We're going back.
What did you say?
All right. Starting the next segment.
I'm embarrassed because I don't want to embarrass you, Austin. So that's Anyway.
Starting with our
Never mind.
lukewarm
Moving
take.
on.
What's our lukewarm take of the day,
Lukewarm take.
Luke?
And go.
All right, so the football playoffs ended somewhat recently. I guess depending on when this comes out.
Super Bowl.
I've heard of this sport.
Probably not a lot of big football fans. I'm guessing, but
Fly, Eagles, fly.
No, you're in the presence of a great football fan.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
what team?
all of them.
Fantasy.
Fantasy football.
I have.
Who were you rooting for with the Super Bowl?
I'm kind of an underdog person, I think, and so I don't like the idea of a three-peat. So I think Eagles definitely. I wouldn't say I'm not an Eagles fan, but I'm not a Chiefs fan.
So
I'm not really a dynasty fan. Like I think it should be like new teams.
I like that.
So I have an Eagles-related article for you.
Okay, here we
So
go.
this actually came up a few weeks before the big game, but there was one of the Eagles players that became an instant meme because he was reading a book on the sidelines. Did anybody see this?
Good for
Yes.
him. I
So
did not.
the memes, and originally he was like criticized, like what's he doing in the middle of the game reading a book?
I have to say, I observed this, and actually, I observed it. You pointed it out, and I said, "That is my guy." I know nothing about him, but if he's reading a book
immediately my
on the
favorite
sidelines
player.
of the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
that would be me.
Oh, was he reading at the Super Bowl?
He did pull it out at the Super
did.
Bowl as well.
Do we know
So
what
Yes.
book it was?
yes, so that's going to be part of the question. Is the
Oh.
book was Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy, which went from like relatively unknown to #1 Amazon bestseller
Sure, that makes
overnight
sense.
because of this
Right.
meme and what's there.
That's what happens.
So
What was the book again?
it's called Inner Excellence
Okay.
by Jim Murphy, and he says the reason he reads it is to regain focus in the middle of a game when he's
Yeah.
maybe made a mistake or something's happened.
Makes
So
sense.
I think you can respond to this in a few different ways. But one, what's something maybe people would criticize or think weird that you do to regain focus or to bring things back in? Or do you have a book that you say, hey, if I needed to get it together for a big event, this is a book I would turn to? You can go whatever direction you want. I just am fascinated by the fact that that became such a big thing and the
Yeah.
book went to like #1 really fast.
Which I feel like that speaks volumes of our culture at a whole. Like, no one wanted to read this book before and be like, oh, I saw some guy on TV. Anyways, but yeah. I do have something weird that I do before I leave work to try and like break the tie
Sure.
of like, all right, I'm leaving everything at work that, no more stress about that. I'll come back tomorrow. So on my my door as I leave my classroom, I just tap 3 times and I say Control Alt Delete,
Ooh.
and then I leave.
No, I actually really like that.
That is bizarre in the extreme.
It's odd. I saw it on.
You're bringing Task Manager up to end job.
I know, right? It's kind of So that's what I do. I don't know. I heard it on some podcast about like protocols. Like you can build these protocols, and that it has to be like a kinesthetic, like something that you're actually doing, and that somehow helps. I don't know, disassociate from work all the time. So that's what I do. It's a little weird. I did it the other day, and Ada noticed, my daughter, and she's like, "Why'd you just do that?" So I told her, and she was like, "That's definitely weird." That's what she said.
Yeah, that's great when your kids
Yes.
see right through you.
Yes. I felt seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud, not surprised. You are much better at leaving work aside. Like I feel like we've been other places and you've commented, do you ever not work? And
You're just important. You're such an important
Such an
one.
important dude.
I wouldn't. That's
Oh my
you're being
gosh.
ridiculous. It's embarrassing. No.
What do you do that's weird if you're trying to focus? Like, say you walk into a room, forget what you were doing.
Sometimes I stick my fingers in my armpits, and then I pull them out. I smell. That's a Saturday Night Live reference. I know.
It comes from a movie.
Well, she was originally Mary
was-
Catherine Gallagher was
Yes.
originally a
Was
Saturday
she?
Night
Was
Live
she?
I
character.
did
Molly
not know
Shannon.
that.
It's one of the
Yes,
many
our heart goes out
failed
to you.
SNL movies. This
So
is
what
going off
I
the
do
rails.
is not that actually. What I do.
Oh, I thought you were being serious.
I mean, doesn't everybody once in a while
Just
check?
you gotta
It's okay.
do a little sniff check. Sniff
No,
check.
what I really do is if I'm walk into the room, because often, in fact all the time, I'm always working mentally. I'll go into the kitchen. Right. I think we already established that. I'll go into the kitchen to get something. It's not there, and so the thing I'll do is I will count 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes with my fingers. And Amy will walk in or has observed this and been like, "Are you counting? Or why are you counting?" Like once or twice. So, yeah, I'm not sure how aware my family is that I do this or not. But I know
staring
that
at the wall,
the kids have. Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of that.
Yeah.
Kind of like I'm somewhere else. 1, 2.
And then it just comes to you, or do you just go?
Most of the time
and
I
you
remember.
just move on.
Most of the time
it comes
I
back to you.
Yeah, the
I wonder
counting
what that
helps.
connection is between like counting and
I don't know, but I read
neuroactivity.
somewhere. I don't remember where it jogs the neurons or something. Some helpful
There
way.
you go.
Yeah. So, Christy, what about you?
So I work from home. So having that separation is kind of hard, but I will often get distracted by literal squirrels, or birds, or anything outside my window, or just my own brain. So my big thing is I have to move. So I will jump up and down and shake my hands to kind of just get any
Jump and
kind of
shake the
nervous.
hands.
Jump and
Yeah.
shake the hands.
Shake it like a
I like a Polaroid
Polaroid
picture. I mean, literally though.
yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking about books, and I don't know if this counts for focusing, but the way you can tell that like ish has hit the fan and I am not in a good place is I have my copy from 6th grade of Ella Enchanted.
Ella Enchanted? That's
Ella
a
Enchanted.
terrible novel.
Not the movie, the
no,
book.
No. I read the book in 6th grade. It was terrible.
And I am going to just
And-
walk out of this room right now because that is my comfort.
Okay, great.
So
No,
that's-
I shouldn't have yucked your yum,
That's
Christy.
okay.
It sounds
That's okay.
great. Yeah,
It's
Tyler, is there a
fine.
book that's your
That's my
focus book?
to go to.
Focus book? No.
focus book?
I have punishment books.
Oh,
That
what
you know,
does that mean?
all books are punishment. I'm not
that's
much of
unfortunate.
a reader. Yeah, I do
What
like
about
audiobooks.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the same.
Yeah,
that
it's-
counts.
My wife says it doesn't, but okay.
I saw a meme that was like 2,000 years of oral tradition being passed down did not happen to tell you that audiobooks don't count.
Okay.
Oh,
I like
that's a good
that.
point.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That-
I'm stealing
Save that for later.
All right,
Sorry.
that's going in the pocket.
File.
Yeah. I like to read. I like to read systematic theology to
To focus?
Yeah, it's
Your
crazy.
children as they sleep.
No, that would put them to sleep. I'm
Oh,
sure.
okay.
I've actually done that
point.
at times
Yeah.
where I'd be
Which
like,
systematic
tonight we're gonna read a
theology?
little Pannenberg. And
Pannenberg.
they're out.
Okay.
No, I like to. Actually, my favorites would be Jürgen Moltmann or Karl Barth's Church Dogmatics. And what's weird is like when I run, which is another focus thing, maybe like to go out and run and learn how to like, focus yourself. But when I run, there's something I can only tell you. It feels like the knots in my brain are coming unknotted. And when I read some of these particular theologians, the same thing happens. Like to have to focus on it and read it, and it's dense. It's like the knots in the brain come undone. So.
It's a beautiful
Yeah.
picture. of
Fascinating.
your
That's
Yeah.
brown noise for me. Have you ever used brown noise? It's
Only when I go to the bathroom.
Oh, I knew that was coming. I knew that was
yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
No, because there's like white noise.
I know.
and
There's too many
pink
noises.
noise.
Can we
But what
stop
is
with
it,
the
brown
noises?
noise?
There's pink noise.
Wait,
I
which
know,
one is
I get
brown?
There's blue. There's white. There's
I don't
yeah.
never
There's
heard of
all
any
the
of these.
all the noises,
Brown noise
and they all
makes
have
my brain go quiet, and it's like the only time
what
I've ever
is, though?
experienced that.
What is
They're
brown
all
noise?
like subtly different frequencies.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly because I've tried the white noise. It doesn't do
Yeah.
it for me.
Have you tried the binaural beats?
I have. I do like that.
Yeah, they say like that's pretty research
The
based.
what?
Yeah.
It's called binaural beats, and so if you have an
beats. Boots,
Yeah.
boots.
beats, but like it's like, but you can't really tell that it's beats, but it's two different beats in each ear, and it's apparently supposed to be very stimulating for your neurological state.
I'm
You have
into
to try
it.
it.
I'm into
But
it.
you can't just like listen to
You
it on a
should-
speaker because it's both hitting at the
You
same
should
time. It
listen
has
to
to
that
be like
and read
a
systematic
like a
theology and see
in
what
your
happens.
ear type of thing, because then it's actually focusing two different.
It's kind of a mental floss image. That
Yeah,
you
it's
just,
like-
Yeah, right
You're
in
like,
there. You're clearing it out.
Yeah.
Clearing it
okay,
out.
I've never heard of any of this.
Yeah.
Binaural beats.
I'll send you a brown noise.
I'm
list.
dubious,
Yes.
but also curious about the
Yes.
beats of which you speak.
Yeah. No, it was just the weirdest thing. My boss sent it to me, and I
Brown
turned it
noise?
on, and my brain just went shh, and that just
And it
never.
goes.
No.
Is there a music that has that effect, the focus effect, too, for anybody? Like if you're on the beats.
Yes.
Yeah.
there
So
a-
I can't have words, or otherwise I
Yeah.
focus on the words.
Mm-hmm.
So I listen to a lot of nerd lo-fi.
Ooh,
Nerd
I like
lo-fi.
nerd lo-fi.
Nerd-
Austin,
nerd
Austin, is
lo-fi.
that adjacent to anything you do?
There's Pokemon
On my
lo-fi.
there is Pokemon lo-fi,
We
and there's
listen to-
Lord of
we
the
ha-
Rings on there. There's some really good
We
stuff.
have that going at the house
I
sometimes.
have
Capybara.
no idea what any of you are talking about right now.
It's
Because
so
you're not
it's,
hip with the kids.
it's like video game
That's true.
music,
True
but
words
it's
have
like
never been-
elevator music. It's like video game music, ate elevator music, and they had a baby.
Ate it and then they had a baby.
Yes.
That's not
So it's
how
like
making
cute.
Well,
babies
that can
work.
happen in the Pokemon verse.
Yeah, there you go. And
The Pokeverse.
that's basically what nerd lo-fi is.
I mean, I know nothing about the
They have
Pokeverse.
eggs.
Yeah.
They
They
have,
have
eggs,
eggs?
Glenn. Yeah.
You eat
There you
it
go.
and then you
You
have
do-
the baby.
No.
There you go.
The egg.
That's how
where
that
eggs
works.
come from.
Anyways, you have to try it.
Okay.
Nerd lo-fi.
Mom, where's
I think that
Pokemon
concludes our
come from?
lukewarm take at
Can
this
you imagine?
point. So tonight we're talking about I don't remember.
Are you
what we're
satisfied
talking
with the
about.
lukewarm takes, Luke? Okay.
We're talking about church business.
Business.
That's it.
Biz nasty.
That's it. We're gonna veer out of that category for a while. So I want to define church business. Church business treating spirituality as a commodity, people as spiritual consumers, with an emphasis on the business administration, marketing, or production of spiritual goods, quote unquote.
Okay.
Good.
So
That assumes a negative, though, almost. Because that, you know what I mean?
yeah, it absolutely
Yeah,
does. My definition absolutely implies
Yeah.
a negative. So let's start with that. Is church business a problem? Is it a negative, or is it, could you argue, a necessary evil? When we think about the kind of commoditization of spiritual need and thinking about people, so maybe it's helpful to think of some examples first of like how we
Sure.
do that.
Yeah.
I've known people who ran like companies that helped market churches online, help them do their logos
heard of
and
this.
branding.
I've heard of this.
Hey, have you?
I have.
You were one of those
I
people.
was one.
I wondered when that
I
was
was
coming.
one. Yes. Oh, it was me.
But another
Look at that mirror
example,
over there.
I'll implicate myself. See, I don't know enough about Christy's skeletons, but she's actually, if I think I might be able to on this one.
Oh, do
But
tell.
for me, like I'm currently working with a church thinking about how do they remodel the building, how do we raise the funds for that, and
Right.
there's very much a business element to some
Sure.
of that.
Yeah.
So I'm implicated in this too. Christy, can you think of examples of church business?
Like personal example of church business?
Or whatever. Like when we talk about church business,
Yeah.
like what are
So I have
examples
a
of this kind of
different-
commoditization of spirituality?
I think when I think of your definition, that feels gross. And I don't like it. But when I think of the practical examples of what I've seen for church business, I don't even know that I'd say necessary evil. I'd just say necessary. At least the way we have it now. But for examples, like when I hear what you're saying, I'm thinking like a Joel Osteen. I'm thinking like a Saddleback. I'm thinking CCM. I'm thinking stuff like that. Where I would be like a Hillsong.
Because they've
Area.
so geared towards
It feels
figuring
like-
out what the market is and trying to
Exactly.
meet the
It feels
need
like
of the
we're going
market,
profit over
identify
meeting
the
the
key
needs.
consumer, trying that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think anytime you veer into focusing on profit over meeting the spiritual needs of the people and the physical and the emotional needs of your church community and the community at large, that's where it feels.
Well, I suppose all those people would say, how seriously or sincerely, I don't know.
Sure.
But I suppose they would all say, well, we're not trying to make a dollar. We're actually trying to meet the need. But part of how we do that is the dollar that follows the person.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that would be their response. Like
Yeah.
you, I'm dubious about that. And I'm dubious about it not just from the what's Osteen's church, the Lakewoods or whatever,
Sure.
or the Hillsongs. I'm dubious about it all the way down to the St. Joe's and the like all the way down. I'm just kind of, are we? I think we have to keep challenging ourselves on that.
I don't see you buying a private jet. So I'm a little less dubious
Oh,
of a
man.
St. Joe then
No, but so maybe this is where we're going. Maybe I'll just put my cards on the table early on here, and then you all can argue with me. I think my definition gives away my perspective a little bit, which is it's a part of the job I know how to do. I know that the branding, the marketing is important in the world we live in, that you've got to figure out how to tell your message, get it down to that elevator pitch. You've got to be able to tell your story. I understand that business administration, fundraising, all those pieces are part of the not-for-profit world in the economy in which we live. And yet it feels kind of impure to me. Like it feels like, well, maybe the money changers in the temple that Jesus goes in and flips the tables thought they were doing like that kind of stuff and helping, even though they were making money too. And I guess I wish for a world that we just were like, hey, we're going to worship on Sunday. We're not going to change the music. There'll be a short sermon. I don't care if you're into it. And
I don't care if you're into it.
I don't care if I tell a story that you find interesting or compelling. We're going to talk about the gospel. And then when it's over, we'll have communion and we'll go our separate ways and we'll come back next week, and whatever, life and all that. But not anything like every aspect of especially Protestant worship can be catered to the consumer in a way that seems to miss the direction of what we're trying to do. Yeah. So I don't like it. And it's a big part of what I do, but I'm very uncomfortable with it.
This scenario, you want unpaid pastor? Like just...
Yeah, in a perfect world, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great?
Every church I've known that's tried to do that doesn't last more than a couple of years.
That's the downside.
Because, as you well know, it's a challenging, demanding job. Even if I think you took the business administration out of it, the actual pastoral part, and that's what I'm like.
I mean, I only work 3 hours a week on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
See, I didn't.
No,
I didn't catch that.
No, well, I appreciate the point, which is how sustainable is the model I'm describing.
Sure. Like in a communal first century Jewish.
Yeah, well, what's the harm of trying to get back to that in some way and just saying, let's just start over. Right. Let's just do it in people's homes.
Well, I think like most things, Western society, American culture has figured out a way to take something that's like just necessary and sort of put it so much in the forefront that it becomes like dark. And
you mean the marketing aspect, and the business aspect,
and like taking it to such a level,
the consumer orientation,
where it's and growth orientation, right? And then all churches now, it becomes where, whether they like to admit it or not, 90% of churches are looking to those churches and those leaders to become the voices of, hey, you need to do ministry this way. It's not like, we're looking at these things and, you could do it this way or you could do it this way. But I think if you're in the space, we all know the Carrie Nieuwhofs and the Craig Goshells and all of those, they're the ones who get the platform. They're the ones who get to say what the golden standard is of, the best practices within ministry are, or worship design or church design or small groups or any of that. And, I'm not sure they've quite have it figured out, because they are the ultimate embodiment of taking it to just kind of the biggest possible, I don't know, just sacrificing. It seems like sacrificing anything for growth.
Yeah.
Numerically.
Well, that's the American way.
That's
right?
the American way.
The American way. Sometimes, so you cited some examples that are more real world, and I think for people not familiar with Carrie, I can never get his last name right. Nieuwhof.
I think it's Nieuwhof.
I think you're right. I always want to say New Wolf or something like that, but I'm not. Anyway, I do listen to his stuff sometimes.
I do too.
And I just want to tell people, that for those who aren't familiar, that he'd be kind of an evangelical but very moderate voice in the large church world, but also really engages people across perspectives. So he'll have people who are kind of pro LGBTQ inclusion on the podcast. He'll have people who are a lot more conservative on the podcast.
Yeah.
The whole concept is this leadership management, marketing kind of thing of your community of faith, whatever it is. And I would have to say what I would agree with is it does feel like there's a lot of invitation to ethical reflection about that in what he does. That being said,
so he's at least self-aware that, like, hey, this could be an issue if you let it.
And I think one of his big themes is the capacity that the leader runs into, or the congregation, the faith community, for burnout when we're following only those models, when there's nothing else. If all you're about is marketing, branding, and the sales pitch, and more butts and pews, and you're just chasing that, well, then you've like really lost sight of, you're chasing, to your point, like a cultural paradigm. You're not actually pursuing whatever God has planted there, and so you're going to burn out. You're going to, whatever. So that's a lot of his stuff. But what I find, so I think that's a good and worthy example. I find though that sometimes caricatures can be helpful to identify what is good or not good about some of these things. And I wonder, when you think about movies and TV, can you think of the kind of ambassadors of religiosity that demonstrate church business? So like things, has anybody seen Righteous Gemstones? I have not, but I've heard other people talk about it. John Goodman is in this as kind of, it's a family that runs like a TV ministry.
Oh, gotcha.
So
I've heard other people talk about this as a comedy and a funny thing. They have a jet, that kind of televangelist kind of thing.
Swigert type. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So this is dating a little bit, but to go back to Steve Martin's Leap of Faith movie is an example in my mind. Can you think of any examples like that, of like the caricatures of?
I can just think of real people,
like Jimmy Swaggart.
And Benny Hinn, is that his name?
Yeah.
Who I think,
My 96-year-old
Mike Winger has come out pretty publicly on YouTube against him, and
his own family has. Saying like he's just, it's all about money.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, and it's, I guess it, like, the worst part about that is like, he'll confess, but then he'll go right back to asking people to send money. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like it's a pattern, a cycle of, oh, I'm repenting. Yeah, I didn't really mean this. And now I'm right back to, if you really love God, you'll send me all your money and he'll bless it tenfold or something like that. It's like, And I think in some ways, that's a whole nother beast that, doesn't necessarily tie in because, I don't know. I'm not sure why in my mind
those
that
feel more
occupies
actively predatory.
Space. Yeah.
And I think, like in the real world of a lot of faith communities, we at least convince ourselves we're not being predatory.
Right. Yeah, I
and
agree.
that we're trying to be ethical,
Right.
and that we, I remember doing a capital campaign at a church where we were trying to raise money for a sanctuary, and we committed that, like, as the pledges came in, if we knew in this small town that there was somebody who made a commitment that couldn't afford it, that I, as the pastor, would go talk to them and be like, it's okay. You don't need to do this. Like, the church made that decision that we would want to make sure that somebody who couldn't afford to give was not giving to it.
Yeah.
Because there was a concern about, you don't want little old ladies who,
Right.
out of the good nature of their heart, are going to give. Yeah.
The widow's mite.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
When we don't
Yeah.
have to have that to get where
Right.
we're going to go. And
Right.
so, but that still doesn't prevent
Excuse me.
some of that still feeling like, is this really the job? Is this really, like, we're not doing Benny Hinn stuff.
Right.
Did you ever, Tyler, when you were doing, so I made this reference earlier, but you didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
Redboat.
Yeah. So Redboat Digital, Ashley and I, my wife, we had a primarily church's digital marketing agency where we built websites and ran social campaigns and did video and all different kinds of things from basically like over the COVID years. So I was let go from a position and we're like, hey, let's try this. And we did pretty good. We did pretty good for ourselves.
Did you ever have a time when you were talking about what you were doing and felt like, I'm just a cheap car salesman, used car salesman for Jesus? Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, how
Not
can we
to
get
the
you?
churches, but there was definitely a tipping point where I felt like I was contributing to the minutia that is social media and everything that is just like
So more like
out
we're just
there.
putting more out in the air.
We're just putting more out
Yeah.
there. Either no one's going to see it or it's actively just contributing to the garbage that is everything that's out there. That is, this isn't a substitute for human interaction. It's a poor medium. It does, you know what I mean? Like all these things, and it just kind of, and I don't know. I wouldn't say that really ever went away. Like I pretty much have kind of settled, I guess, on the that other side of the fence.
On the other side of the fence being
that churches should attempt to limit the amount of, content that they are intentionally putting out there.
just to not contribute. If it's just pointless.
If it's just pointless.
To hold the space.
Just
to be present.
do it.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got to post 4 times a week, or we've got to do this, and we've got to live stream this thing, and we've got to... No, you don't. You don't have. You know what I mean? Unless you really know that you're meeting a need, and it's purpose driven. Put the content calendars away, and just.
Well, we have a content calendar.
I know you do. We created it,
but
no, I mean I know.
No, actually no. Yeah. But this is a little different than that.
Yeah.
This is more of an administrative tool because it's not to. We don't follow that.
Yeah.
Actually, that paradigm anymore.
Yeah.
But what it is to do is to say, we don't need to have something on a day just to have it.
Right.
But we do need to figure out how to prioritize and decide what we put out. So it's not just putting stuff out constantly to put stuff out.
Well, it's hard because, as a church, you get pressure from every group. They want,
they want their stuff. So having to figure that out
there, and you got to figure that out. But, yeah.
So one aspect of this is that it's the social media presence. Like one thing I think at a certain point in my life, for my own reasons, I decided I don't want to be on social media. And I've consistently heard people say, no, as a pastor, people need to see that. They need to see your public witness. You need to live out loud. Like I was at an annual conference event where somebody was basically giving a talk on this, like how to live your social media presence, live out loud and whatever. And I thought that is just a show. I don't want to do that. I do enough of that in life without having to do it online and present something. Yeah. Isn't that the same kind of like how much of this is really authentic and how much of this is just kind of caving into a culture of appearance and consumerism?
Right.
And
how much is it just moral grandstanding? And
in some cases,
Right. But you can also just use it for news and events. And I think that's a good use of it. Like, for example, we have a concert coming up, or we have the dance recital, or we have, fill in the blank of all the things that go, or, Suzuki lessons are being given here, things like that. So I do think that there is a place for social media with the church, but I think the moral grandstanding could be toned down a bit, and you could use it as an information.
See, I'm not on social media, so do churches do that a lot, moral grandstanding? Like, we're taking a stand on this issue. People do that.
I think personal, like, because you were talking about pastors and their own personal pages. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I wasn't thinking more from
churches,
the church's side, but more
individuals.
of the individual side.
So that's one element of the productions, the church industrial complex. But another one would be, the building, the worship experience. How big of fog machine does one need to run an effective and moving?
Always bigger.
One is not big enough. They are
all haze, no praise. Is that what?
I have recently heard this. Yes,
that's a new term for me.
Yeah,
I think having a building is important. So to your point of like going back to houses, I like the idea of even maybe having like a network of houses, but then having a central location. Especially, that was one of the things my husband and I loved about this building is that it was here for the community. It doesn't just sit empty.
Yeah.
There are different outreaches, and Praise Park's the same way.
Yeah.
And so that's my thing is if we're going back to that, like, the house church, you have maybe 15 people.
Yeah.
If you can, like that would be a squeeze at my house.
Well, the advantage to the building can be that it becomes a home to the community.
Sure.
In a way, not just the broader community, but the faith community, kind of.
Yes.
But then even then, like, when does that value start to become overridden by the fact that we like want it to be fantastic in some way and attractional,
Right.
And is that a problem?
I think there's fantastic and functional.
There you
So,
go.
for example, some of the things that we're talking about for this capital campaign are function.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
But like, okay, I threw the smoke machines under there,
Sure.
like, and
But it's
I
not
don't
just
think we
that.
need
It can
to get a
also be,
smoke
I've heard
machine.
there are like certain chords and things that you can use and that are actively used to elicit
the
an
emotion.
emotional response. And so where
Yeah.
does
Where you build
worship
that up.
become manipulation?
well, that's true
you
in
know?
preaching too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
that's-
You are a
that's-
communicator, so you have to. Yeah, I think really, I don't know,
I think
toe that. It kind of walk that fine line.
So I can think of two examples around preaching. Like one is hearing a preacher say, well, if I know if I go out and I preach and I don't see somebody cry, I haven't done my job today. And that gives me an ick feeling.
Sure.
Another one that I think of is I knew of a pastor. I didn't know him personally, but he would say, every sermon, I work in one word that I know that the congregation won't know, just to remind them that I know.
No.
That's a pretty nasty
No.
feeling, isn't
Wow.
it? But
The self-grandizing.
but it's kind of
glorious.
what I'm trying
As
to
you
get at in the
use.
concern about.
Sanctimonious,
Oh
even.
Yeah, it's not. Well, it's not even sanctimonious. It's
He's just worried
I
to
know,
get
I'm
big
trying to.
words.
It's just-
That's the biggest word I know. That's
word I
that's
know.
it's just pompous, right? It's
Yes.
It's there's an arrogance to it,
Yeah.
but that's kind of I think
Yeah.
what underlies my kind of negative definition of all this is like,
Right.
who's to say? Like who is it? What is a faith community? Who are we to say?
Right.
Oh, we're so great. Come and be a part of us. Like that kind of seems antithetical to the gospel, where it's like, actually, no, don't come here. This is not a good place to be. We're messed up. That should be the invitation, which is,
Yeah.
don't come.
Yeah.
Don't be a part of this. This is hard. You won't like it. We're terrible people. We're selfish.
We're
we have
terrible
blurry
at it.
boundaries.
We don't
make
know how to do
mistakes.
this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we don't know what we're doing. Our kids are all a mess. Like that wouldn't that be? That's a church I'd like to go to.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm getting an idea for a new marketing campaign.
That has been,
Don't
I
come
mean, the
here.
where it's okay to not be okay has kind of
But even
very slightly
Yeah,
gone that way, but
I
you're
know.
saying taking it just
Just-
to the next
just-
level of
just imagine, like,
the dumpster fire church.
The Good Feet commercials.
Welcome to
yeah,
Dumpster
the
Fire
Fire
Church.
Yeah, the
I
Dumpster
like it.
Fire Church. Like the Good Feet commercials. Those commercials where they're like, "Oh, I got these insoles and they changed my life," and they're like crying because
Yeah.
it's such a life change. Except for this person's crying because the church that they're still experiencing their whole life is a mess, and the community too. Like, I don't know what's wrong. None of us agree. We're fighting about everything. My marriage is a shambles. I'm gonna lose my job. And it's like, welcome to our church.
We have
to
the
our
biggest
church.
fog machine.
We also have a fog machine. But I don't want to be
we
a
have
part
a
of that
fog
church.
machine.
Because there is
There is a
such
certain authenticity
Yes,
to it. Yes.
yes.
And that's what everybody,
Also
I mean, I
better.
think we're talking about like characters, right? That's the problem that everybody has with Christian characters as they're portrayed in media is that everything is perfect, the Ned Flanders sort
Yeah.
of, everything's perfect all the time, and you're saying just the complete opposite.
And there's a soapbox.
refreshing like aspect to that. Yeah.
Remind me if I have gone on a diatribe about this before, but I'm about to stand upon my soapbox and say
Get on the table.
say that like this comes on even down to who the person of the pastor is. Like when we're talking about expectations of what we want that person to be, who is the figurehead or the spokesperson, the representative of the congregation. Congregations want a church, they want a pastor who is like, got some experience but not too old.
Oh yeah, you did talk about this
Yeah,
last
Did
time.
I talk about this
You
last
did.
podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, it really bugs me. Because,
You can say it again.
Yeah, okay. Here
Do
I will.
it.
I'll
Go.
do it. I'm going to look right at the camera too and say
Which
it again.
one?
I don't know. I don't know how any of this is set up. But it is a problem because what I wished for was the kind of church that we could come together and there could be a comfort level with the not needing to produce anything, but to just say no. The truth of the matter is, we all here are profoundly warped by our experiences as human beings. It's beautiful and it's wonderful.
That was your preaching voice right there.
But yeah, I'm lilting into it.
It's beautiful.
He's about to sing.
I'm getting into my preaching cadence right now. Yeah, it's a wonderful, beautiful experience, but we're all broken people, and it's also terrible. And
so, do you feel like you couldn't say that right now? I don't know.
I mean, I do, but I think the trick is to go like, how much can you handle of like the kind of real candor about what the content of that is?
Yeah.
And I think the truth is that we can't handle it. We can't really even handle it in close friendships. Sometimes we can't handle it even with the people we're married to sometimes, or our children or our parents, the full candor about that. So I realize that's part of just being human too.
Yeah.
But I think something about that is what bugs me about the church business, because at the end of the day, it's all wrapped up in like, Jesus came for the sake of the mercy of heaven meeting the human condition in the gravel and the dust of this earth. And yet we insist on polishing the gravel off and shining up our dustiness and saying, no, this is about something, this is about looking a different way, or maybe even being a different way, but not really figuring out how to embrace what God comes to do. Instead, hide it in the haze of the fog machine and behind the blare of $1 million organ.
Ooh. That's a mic drop comment right there.
I know.
Sermon over.
Over.
Which all those things, I mean, they're powerful experience.
Not bad in and of themselves, but it's the intent that's behind it, right? That creates this dynamic of, that it just kind of flips it on its head and creates this top-down preacher, CEO, executive pastor type role environment that makes you wonder, like, is this it? Like, is this what we're striving for? This sort of, worship experience / faith community that is modeling itself after modern corporations? I don't know. Like, is that aspirational? Is that really what we want to be? Is it biblical even? I don't know.
It's not biblical.
So would you rather? Let's do some would you rathers. These are, I'm pulling these out of thin air.
And then I have a thought.
Okay.
Don't let me forget it. I'm going to do
you go
this so I
first,
don't forget
Christy.
it.
I can hold my
Do your
would you
thought.
rather.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it'll give me time to work out
afterwards?
more. No, I'll think about what I'm going to say next while you're talking.
No,
That's fine.
so it's
I'm just
interesting
kidding, by the
because
way, Melissa.
No. I totally agree with everything you said. And I think it's one of those things when I think church business, I'm not thinking that at all. I'm thinking, and this, I think, I'm using the word think a lot, comes from my unique perspective of my job where I work as a Salesforce consultant with nonprofits and educational foundations. And so I have 23 different nonprofit and educational foundation clients. Some are faith-based, some aren't. And I was in an international missions organization before that. And what I found in one of the reasons that we exist as a company is because God love him. It really doesn't matter how passionate that people are. If they don't have good administration, they don't have good reach. Their mission isn't met. People are just frustrated. Their turnover is really high. And so I think I come at it from more of like an administrative thing where I'm like, no, churches need good administration, and it's worth, and because I'm thinking of churches as nonprofits, maybe less so than like commoditizing. How do you
commoditized?
Yeah, you were on the
sure that
the second one.
The spiritual experience. So I think that's where my mind goes, where I'm like, it's worth putting the time and the resources in for good administration, because then you get those community partnerships like we're talking about. Then you have the partnerships at the Y. Then you have stuff like that, less turnover. People understand the mission and the purpose. Like, you're able to weave that together because people need something to band behind with that. And so I've seen just how a bad administration, bad business
Yeah.
processes can really bring down a mission of a nonprofit.
Even a good mission.
Even a great mission.
I think the word that was in my mind as you were saying that was accountability too.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so that you know the importance of that. You know that there's work in the world that needs done by nonprofits, whether it be just the spiritual home of a place where we negotiate what it means forgiveness is and mercy is and hope is, or whether it be the concrete stuff. I think of after the earthquake in Haiti 10 years ago or whatever it was one of the earlier ones in the last couple decades, that within 24 hours of that, there were 2 747s loaded with aid materials circling the runway in Port-au-Prince, and one of them was the United Methodist Committee on Relief's 747, fully loaded, ready to go whenever there's a crisis of that magnitude.
Right.
Well, that only happens because there are thousands of churches that are supporting that. That's that's where you get that. The other one was, I think, Catholic Charities. So again, it's only because there's thousands of churches organized in predominantly accountable ways, with people asking questions like the questions we're asking here tonight. How much of this is production? How much of this is really for the good? Sure. So I think that's a good word, that there is good stuff that happens. And I think when I'm processing some of this, I'm being my own worst critic. Like, I'm not always giving credit to the good stuff that happens. It's more just the self-critique.
Well, and I think it highlights the spectrum, right? Of like, there are no nonsense things that are non-negotiable best practices, but that isn't an end of it in itself, right? Is that the growth, and because even nonprofits can get in that mind space where they're non-profit by designation, but by designation only, and if their only intent is on growing or scooping up competitors and eating them for breakfast, then maybe that's not the spirit of their mission, so it can get to an unhealthy place. Would you rather?
Would you rather take your children to a place that they walked in and said, this is an awesome, fun place I want to come back to again and again because of how well it was designed for the kids to have fun? Or would you rather come back to a place that is totally devoid of any child entertainment, but your kids are loved, safe, and cared for? And I realize I'm creating a binary that doesn't necessarily have to exist, but known.
It does
but
every Sunday.
But it does in lots of places.
100%.
Where one place it's fun and it's awesome and it's shiny and it's been designed for kids, and in another place where kids are loved, safe, and cared for, which is probably true in the first place. But also known.
Yeah, that one. All day, every day. That's if we go back to last week, that's literally what I was talking about. We had zero. We had those room dividers. You know what I mean?
That was your experience growing up.
That was my experience growing up, and that's why I'm still in
yeah,
church.
Yeah.
Because
what do you mean known, though?
I mean, like, the kid walks into the church and most of the folks that are in that worship space are like, oh, I recognize that kid. I know who that kid is.
Can they
There's
run
a
around
community
without
that
their
knows
shoes
them.
on?
Right, yes. But there's also something to be said for friends with peer-to-peer relationships, growing with peers. Yeah, that's a tough one. I struggle with that one. I can't answer that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think your kids definitely have the known factor down.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's not
for
just
sure.
because of the decibel level that them
They bring everywhere.
Which I say with a lot of, I'm not being critical for anybody who doesn't know. I say that with a lot of affection.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's true. I think that they have the known piece down. And my own experience of that was, it's always been really meaningful to me as a parent that my kids were known.
Yeah.
And that people would talk to them and relate to them and whatever. But I've never had the option either. You're going to go to church where I am the pastor.
And guess what? There aren't that many other kids your age there, or maybe there are. And I don't know. It's that's a tricky one.
Okay, another binary.
Would you
rather be able to worship in a place where the style of worship spoke to your heart and like the songs that you sang and all of that kind of stuff was just right where you wanted to be? Or would you rather every single Sunday never ever sing a song in worship that meant anything to you, but know and be known by the people around you. Like if it's a binary choice,
gotcha.
where you get to go and do the music that speaks to your heart, but you don't really know.
Nobody
but you're
really
anonymous.
knows. Yeah.
Are we in modern life where we have Spotify? That's a legitimate question. Can I listen?
You're
to
saying
other-
like outside of your worship?
Can I listen
experience,
outside? Yeah.
Can you get it? Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, that's not a question for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think worship style and experience should take a backseat to the relationships that you have in the space, and that worship is an attitude and not necessarily a style.
So if you really put yourself in the perspective, so neither of you worship in a traditional service.
Oh no, but that's what I grew up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to say, I'm going to give up contemporary worship, and you're like, and I'm the reverse of you guys on this. Like, I love our worship folks. Austin is awesome in his worship leadership, but my heart sings more in the traditional service. In some ways, it's kind of how you sing it, not what you sing. To me, that makes the difference.
Gotcha.
But loud, as long as I can sing loud wherever I'm at. But yeah. So if you had to say, if you had to be in a where it's just not you're going to sing.
Yeah.
I know you like contemporary. You may have grown up with traditional, but you
like
worship
both.
in a contemporary service.
Is
I do. It's
contemporary still
smaller.
contemporary? Like, at what point does it become a whole new genre?
Well, I think it's fragmenting.
That's
There's
true.
different genres.
yeah.
Of
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because it's like, to me, early 2000s contemporary is
Get
really
some jars of clay up in here.
nobody's singing those songs. You know, I don't know.
You don't. You want a little shout to the Lord? That's more
a little bit,
90s.
yeah, a little
We
bright.
did that.
Yeah.
We did that.
I'm ready to
a couple
sing at
months
this
ago.
point.
Okay.
My Savior.
This is our singing segment.
Lord, there is none like you. Let's do some sweet harmonies.
Here we go.
There we
All
go.
of my days.
See, because contemporary just continues to
Yeah, sure.
contemporize.
Well, this is kind of the whole
I don't
point.
know.
Like,
I'm
Christy's
not-
got her
I'm not
hand up.
really-
I think she needs to get a
It's
word
because
in.
if I don't, I will forget. So I'm not trying to interrupt here.
No, no.
We picked the contemporary service because it was at 9:00 and it's smaller. It had nothing to do with the worship.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
But you're the outlier.
Not that the worship isn't
You're an
great.
outlier. Sorry.
Austin's the best. But yeah, that's why we picked it. We like the early service and we like smaller services.
Okay.
Because we feel we can know and be known better that way than we could at the 11:00.
See, and we picked the Y because we wanted to be a part of something different and cutting edge and missional.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to try the brunch out at some point.
So the brunch is nice.
You
But
should.
Seth can't have dairy,
Brunch
so-
Church, fourth Sunday of the month at St. Joe at the Y. You don't have to bring something to
there, be
enjoy the
square.
brunch
That's
and the
right.
discussion.
Must brunch.
Yeah, so I think definitely. It's not that the worship isn't important, but to me that one's much lower level.
Would you rather? Would you rather be connected with a faith community that had absolutely no social media presence at all?
Does St. Joe have a
and
social media presence?
no email presence, no technological communication capacity
like it.
except for the written newsletter and bulletin.
On a stone
And
tablet.
you
On
never,
a stone tablet.
you never
The
hear.
monastery.
But again, in that
Know and be
context,
known.
know and be known.
Yeah.
Or would you rather get timely, accurate information delivered to you in ways that are accessible and that you utilize in every other area
my
of your life?
preferential
In your own
delivery method,
preferences, yes.
Do we get a call for the prayer list every week? That's what I want to know.
Do you get the prayer chains?
The prayer
yes.
chains. Is there a prayer chain in scenario number one?
So of course.
I mean,
It's actually a fax now.
Oh,
it's dang it. I gotta check my
The thing
my
with prayer
prayer
chains,
beeper.
prayer chains
My
are-
prayer pager just went off.
prayer chain can't come through because you're on the internet.
Dang it.
Yeah, the thing prayer chains are kind of notorious for is sharing a little bit more than is strictly
really?
necessary
Just
for
a
the.
Is it?
But that's the
I've
downside
never-
too of
you
the
know,
know
I've
and
never
be
heard
known,
of
right?
that.
That's
You
the
don't get
other
to choose that.
It's the other side of the know and be known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't like having the timely, accurate, up-to-date information, but if I had to choose, I know I was going to be completely anonymous, I think what's the point for me? Like anytime it's going to, for me, if they're going to have this binary, if it's X or know and be known, I'm going to choose know and be known.
If you're connected,
I think over everything,
you will find out. Regardless of delivery method, I'm not on social media. I don't check my email, but I'm connected and I find things out.
Oh yeah, people find out in those manners. Of,
it's like I don't know. So I think in our lifetime there will be a pendulum swing back towards anti-technological sentiment, and I think there will be churches and there will be a space for
stone tablets.
deep resistance towards digital communication.
I mean, there's been one of those for a while. It's called the Amish.
Like we're starting a thing only instead of 18.
We're gonna move it up 100. It's gonna be 1920 instead of 1620.
Yeah, or 1990s.
You can use a phone.
You can get a pager, and you can have
only once
a Nokia.
Would you
rather
iPhone?
How much do the credits cost? That's what do we get free nights and weekends?
Nights and weekends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you rather? This is a real choice.
Only on Sunday.
Would you rather go to a church where you feel like there's a ton of people and you all kind of look at things the same way?
Oh, nice. This one's going to be hard.
Or would you rather go to a church where you know and are known and you actually realize that nobody looks at everything the same way? Which I don't think those are necessary.
Nobody or just you? Like
That's
you're the odd one out?
Yeah.
Or
so that can be a very uncomfortable feeling if there is a lot of groupthink.
Sure.
So yeah, nobody wants to be the odd one out.
Right.
But I'm saying but I think what I would say is that if we were able to be in a place where we know and are known, that there can be in theory a faith community where we just know we don't agree. And whether we don't see things the same way.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen that in places.
I think those are the healthy communities. Like I honestly wonder how some of these churches, like what do they even talk about? Like if they all agree, they just all sit around and high five each other about their agreement theologically.
The way to be
I don't get it.
I think for me it
is
depends.
Is that just too rudimentary?
But, no,
there are minor points that they disagree on.
I think we've been through.
I don't know.
The last 20 years in particular, I think we've been through a sorting into. It drives me crazy when I hear clergy say, "Well, we're going to put this gathering or this group for like-minded," because I know what they're getting at is like, well, we have a perspective on what the church should be and what direction we need to move. But I personally don't want to only be in a space where I'm with like-minded people.
Yeah.
Like that is not interesting.
It's called tribalism.
Yeah, right. But that's what has happened,
anyway.
Not just to the denomination of which I'm a part, but to across all of Christianity. We've tribalized into silos where it's really hard to find a place that you go worship with people who aren't like-minded in some respect.
Yeah.
And it feels really strange when you're in a place like that which I think is the place we're trying to be. Part of why this conversation's happening is, well, how do we actually say, no, we're not like-minded?
Yeah.
We want to know each other. We want to know and celebrate that.
I think generally, yes, but there are a few things, like in a faith community, that I do want to have in common. And they feel rudimentary to me, but a couple of them might not be.
So, like for you, like non-negotiables.
What would those be, Christy?
I mean, the gospel.
Here we go.
What's that mean?
So I would say the Apostles' Creed.
Okay.
I think we should all be able to.
So sorry, Mormons. Sorry, Jehovah's Witnesses.
To say that without crossing our fingers.
Right. I think
putting some people out there.
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
that's
Mormons.
why I don't go to a Mormon temple. And then another non-negotiable for me is women in leadership. That's just
that's a much smaller view, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And identifying that is good.
Right. That's a red line for me. I'm not going to be a part of a faith community that
I would agree with those, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm on board with your selection process.
And really, those are my biggest ones. Everything else, I think.
Pope, no Pope. I'm just kidding.
I was about to say,
well, to you, you're saying those are things that I would like there to be consensus in the faith community about.
Correct.
You're not saying everybody has to
be there.
Everybody in the church has to be like, oh yeah, I'm every line of the Apostles' Creed I'm cool with.
No.
Or that everybody in the church has, because that is not true anywhere. Like any church I've ever been, there have been people who are like, this line I don't know about. Now, you do kind of want the pastor to be saying, this is the kind of thing we share.
Yeah.
And the same about women in ministry. Like, is there going to be somebody there's like, I don't know. But again, you want the kind of cohesion of the church to be like, no, this is settled for us.
Yeah.
We affirm women in ministry.
Yeah.
So, which I think that's kind of something we probably are all, your wife is a woman in a ministry leadership role. So,
I wasn't going to out her here.
And you weren't going to say, this is the place I want to say.
this is the
time I want to say,
really
I'm not
like,
sure it's scriptural.
Yeah. I'm going to drop that
That's
bomb.
an interesting, is there, Tyler, what about you? She named a couple things like in terms of like, I need the faith community to be on these essential things in a place I know where it's at, but there's a lot of other stuff that's negotiable. What do you think those are?
My only negotiables are like Apostles' Creed type things.
So you're
non-negotiables.
Yes, non-negotiables.
Yeah. I will negotiate about the Apostles' Creed.
Everything else,
all the cultural stuff, I'm going to be a total jerk about.
Yeah. Flip-flop that.
But
I'm okay with everything. Yes. Yeah.
That is the way a lot of people are, though.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yes. So, like, resurrection, and I mean, those few, I think that's pretty much it. Everything else, let's have a conversation and let's figure it out along the way.
But
in a genuine way. Because I think there are conversations that happen in a disingenuous way, but yeah.
I'm sorry, I talked over you.
No, you're good.
The question for me comes to some of the things we do talk about and let's figure out, but some of these things affect people on a day-to-day basis in the church, for example. So say we're talking about women in ministry, like who makes that decision?
Yeah.
Like is it Josh Mo over here, or like where do we find that consensus?
But I think that's,
I know that's not
the
necessarily
beauty
what we're
of
talking
the
about
church
today,
is that there is a space for literally anyone, right? There is a church, there is a denomination who believes your particular, flavor of it, and we can have a conversation about it as far as
in our world, which is part of what's created this problem we're talking about.
This tribalism.
Right. The fancy academic terminology for that is it's the Durkheimian settlement.
The Durkheimian settlement.
The post-World War II.
Was he in Harry Potter?
The post-world. It's a terminology.
The Draconian agreement
describes that how in America.
Is he in Slytherin?
Yeah, I think so. He was a Hufflepuff or whatever.
He's a puff. Sorry,
I don't know.
That was a bad joke.
That's just a description of like the America from the get-go has had options and choice.
Yeah.
Well, not quite from the get-go, but from pretty early on, there's been options and choice.
Like, you're Catholic? Going to Maryland. Sorry.
Go to Maryland, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
But pretty quickly that broke down even in Maryland, and it broke down by the time the country actually forms as a country, it's breaking down in places like Massachusetts and whatever.
Right.
So, but the point is, so there's been like a spiritual marketplace in the United States basically since the get-go, which is different than most places in the world before the United States existed. And like when you go to places in other regions of the world now that have that settlement, they really have it as a downstream effect from like American thought and life and influences, and from colonial thought, life and influences, that they've got choices like that. So anyway, like, just put yourself in the frame of mind of somebody who lives in like the 12th century,
where you literally don't have a choice, or you die
there is the church, Like
my state-sponsored church.
And actually,
it goes back to Orthodox and Catholic.
Yeah, but if you're living in the 12th century in like a little village in France, you don't. What does that matter to you? Like those people, first of all, they're heretics.
Right, obviously.
Like
we should probably kill them.
Everybody is not of that faith. Like you will never meet anyone of that faith. So and you probably don't even like how much awareness.
Honestly.
How much awareness is like an average
all
person.
illiterate.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So like this is
we're
the
all dying of the
shape.
plague in
So would you rather be a part of that church? Would you rather get the plague
church or?
So the final would you rather is, and this is again a real choice people.
Speaking of the plague, no. Sorry. Actually, I do have a legit question about the plague, and it's about history.
And then we'll get in the would you rather and wrap
pastoral. I heard once that so many priests died in the plague because they have to give last rites that it pretty much ruined the church and ruined like academia because they had to let in so many randos to replace the frequency at which the priests were dying, that it like pretty much ruined.
What do you mean by ruined?
Ruined in like they didn't know how to read. They couldn't actively pass on the tenets of the Catholic faith, which I mean the Catholic faith was, in some places was the church.
Yeah.
They're kind of
this
what
is
you're
what
saying,
we were
right?
just talking
Yeah, it's like
about,
they didn't have options and like couldn't read the Bible or didn't know, and because they had to have somebody to give last rites. And I don't know if you've heard that.
And this was actually, if you think about a lot of the village life.
I think Luke is fact checking us in real time.
There are articles about such things, so I haven't read them. But yes,
whether it's true or not, it's on the internet, folks. Okay, there we go.
I found one, Priests in the Black Death. So
Nice.
sounds.
Did they get the cool doctors thing too?
Probably
Like
not.
that beak
It just came from the
and-
collar. It was like a big pointy collar.
So that wouldn't be surprising, would it? Like if you have kind of your class of people that being said, I do think that, the notion of clergy as educated was kind of something that has always been a matter of that the church had to contend for. So like it's not an assumption always that the clergy has a better or more substantial education than
Were you
everybody
the
else,
second
even
son?
in the historic. If you go back to the medieval period,
Gotcha.
a lot of your little village priests and whatever, some of them would not have been able to read even. I mean, that's been...
But you don't think there would have been an assumption that like they're at least more educated than everybody else?
I think, sure, there might have been, and there were probably ways they tried to do that, but I think it was a factor. I think by the time you get to like, fast forward all the way to European settlement of North America, early Methodists, like we were kind of known for not really having a highly educated clergy, and that like you need a Bible, a hymnal, and a book of discipline. You need 3 books. Take those out, and that's what you need. And they would do
and a spirit on fire.
Well, and course of study actually started. Like Luke probably knows more about this than I do because he's the a person who walks in these circles more. But course of study started to help educate folks who didn't have a seminary or a college education, but to help equip them for ministry.
And at the time, the church was exploding, and there was a huge need for pastoral leadership, right?
Yeah, and it's really based on the premise that everybody has a call to be priests of the gospel, to borrow language out of the book of Hebrews, so anybody can do it.
Right.
But the church has always, my point is really just the church has always been on this kind of like, how do we educate and have clergy who... if you can know what you're talking about when it comes to these things, at least know what the tradition is and are informed about the tradition and scripture. So, but kind of on that note,
Would
yes.
you rather?
Would you rather?
Would you rather? Yeah.
Would you rather?
Would you rather have a pastor who is a competent administrator who could do all the stuff we've been talking about to help the church tell its story and market and present that well, or would you rather have a pastor who had a gift for loving people? And let me tell you, this is a decision churches in our particular connection, I get to a front row seat to this, get to make all the time. Would they rather have somebody who can help things get done and happen and administer, or we have people who don't have necessarily those gifts?
Yeah.
But most pastors are really just called to love people. They don't have a calling to like, let's have hard conversations. Let's be prophetic. Let's balance budgets and let's get the people nominated to jobs and let's, like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're using your like political.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's all political aspects to the job in a way. Would you rather have the person who is the competent administrator, the person who can do the things we've been talking about here today, but with integrity?
Sure.
Or if it's a binary, and a lot of times, I hope you saw Luke was smiling as I was saying.
You're not usually gifted in both.
Right, Luke?
Yeah.
And people can be, but it's a really exceptional thing. What do you have to say, Luke?
Well, I think to Glenn's point is, churches in our denomination fill out a form on this is what we want from our next pastor, this is what we need. And sometimes those forms will say, we need somebody who can do this really well because it's where we struggle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, also meeting more and more clergy throughout the denomination, there are people that are skilled at different things. So it's trying to see who's the right fit for the right place.
Mm-hmm. But in my experience, I wonder if you agree with most pastors, their calling and their gift is that they love God and they love people. Just let them loose doing that. Let them loose going to the hospital. Let them loose with a family in crisis. Let them do that all day long. But all the other stuff we've talked about here, keep away from it. Would you rather have the person who can do the rare skill set that we've talked about? It's a more visible skill set.
Yeah.
But numerically, the rarer skill set of all of this production stuff we've talked about? Or would you rather have the person who just can't do that, but is going to show up and love people?
So are we assuming that the loving pastor doesn't have a team around him or her?
Mm. Well, like I said, I'm creating binary would you rather choices.
Right.
And actually, and again, I'm just talking in my context of the United Methodist Church.
Yeah.
That would be true. In 88, 91% of churches is there's no pastoral team. There's a pastor, and that's the
I
deal.
would say in the way the church currently exists as this conglomerate, corporate type of, heavy leadership oriented, context, I would take the person who is competent in doing those things. I think we could have a larger conversation of, is that right or wrong? Should it be created that way? But in the way that it currently exists, I think you got to have somebody who can do those things, and everybody else can do the loving. It's harder to find somebody flip-flop. Yeah. It's hard to find a really great leader who has enough margin in their life to lead an entire church as a elder or as a chairman or a board person than it is to find,
somebody who'll show up and love people.
Show up and love people. Yeah. I think that's,
I don't know.
So I think my long answer would be it depends on the church and where the church's gifts lie. Because I think you should find a pastor that complements that. So if you have a church that's really close, that loves each other well, shows up for each other at the hospital, I think it's fine looking for the first one. And I have seen that happens. But personally, what I'm going to say is I've never left a church because they didn't post enough on social media, or the slides were off, or the music wasn't what I wanted. But I have because we were left floundering. And no one showed up.
And there wasn't the love or the care of,
And so I think I would, I totally see what you're saying, but in my experience, I would say definitely number 2.
That's a great point to say, not every church needs a rock star administrator because they may not have a ton of administration.
Sure.
They may have, smaller budgets and smaller administrative
Well, and the
needs.
laity can
they
pick
all
up
have some.
some of those
Yeah,
pieces.
they can pick up some of that. But so it does depend on
that
the
was
skill.
laity, not lady, just for people.
The laity. L-A-I.
The ladies can pick up after everyone. I think is what he said. I think he said the ladies can do all the dishes. There's actually the quote.
There is a
Glenn.
cohort of female clergy that will be coming after me
on a snap.
After that statement. No, they would know I said laity.
I know, but not everyone that listening knows the term
I know.
Ladies, all the ladies do our dishes.
Here's what,
They're in the kitchen where they belong.
Oh my God, I'm going to throw my shoe at you.
Sorry.
So I didn't answer this question yet, but, Luke.
You didn't answer any of you would you rathers.
I kind of did.
You know what? Let's
though.
do the whole segment over.
All right, here we go.
But I want to answer this. What? Would I rather? You want to go rapid fire? Can you remember them?
I don't know. That could be fun.
Plague,
but you say what you were going to say.
Plague
That's the
or...
only one I remember.
So,
yeah.
Luke, how do you think I would answer this if I was saying it? Like, who do I want as a pastor? Do you think I would? You work with me a lot. I'm curious what you would say first, and of course Austin too. But I'm
curious how pastors even answer this, because you are so like, do you answer it as who your boss would be? Or in your hypothetical multiverse life where
my dream world.
where you're a lady.
You're a lady.
So let's pretend you're a lady.
Yeah. Well, I'd be a very lovely one. I thought we were gonna have Luke and Austin. Luke and Austin. Let's get you in on this. And when it comes to a pastor, what would you rather? First of all.
Well, while you guys were talking about it, my thought was kind of, if you've got the loving pastor, but they have no administrative skills, how long does that church stay open? Like, is there a survival aspect to that? So as much as I would rather have, I think, the loving pastor, I think you've also got to have a health of the organization. And I guess to Christy's point, where can everybody else pick up some of that? Like, there's a fit to it. There's some churches I think would do better with an administrative person because they're so good at taking care of each other, and vice versa. There's some that, you may have a bunch of administratively gifted people in your congregation, but you need somebody to lean into the loving side. So
you're introducing more nuance into this. Would you rather than is helpful?
So I would say.
Rather?
I think you've got to have the administrative person for that role.
Okay. Austin, what's your vote? You've been in churches. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, it's got to be the loving pastor. I think it's because I come from more of a production role, a worship leader role most of the time. So it's like I've already got all that covered.
Right.
Like I need a pastor who can like pour life back into me.
Yeah.
It's kind of more the perspective I come from.
It sounds like an impossible job. Luke, you watch me behind the curtain sometimes, and what do you think my answer will be as to what I would prefer for, if in a hypothetical world where I am a lovely person who does not have to be in a pastoral role, and I'm going to show up at my hypothetical church of choice, which I imagine to be a place which is not all that fantastic, but my kids are known and loved, where I know and am known and don't have to agree, but can accept people in the face of disagreement, where I don't have to worship with songs that are like the music I want.
Ooh, he is answering. He's all rapid fire. Look at this.
But in that world, what do you think I would wish for as an ideal? Even having seen me behind the curtain.
I'm going to say the loving one.
I think that is what I would wish for, but I think it would also drive me crazy if they had no administrative skills. I think I'd be like, what is wrong? Like, that was what you probably would think from being behind the scenes, where I would be like, what is not
I'm going to go into ministry just so I can fix all of these administrative problems. I could care less. I just want to.
I would approach my pastor and say, maybe it's time you consider hiring an executive pastor.
That's right.
And I do like when you're able to have that partnership, and of course that's extra.
And then a teaching pastor and children. What is it with all the pastors? Some of these churches
because
got too
people
many
are
pastors.
gifted in different ways. I think if
how do you pay all these people?
Well, a lot of them are
You have to have a
part-time.
good administrator.
You have to have a good
to
administrator.
help raise the funds, and that brings us full circle.
Gotcha, full circle. Corporate
some of
church.
this
The
can
Industrial
bite,
Ministry Complex. Is that what we're going to title this? The Industrial Ministry
I thought
Complex?
it was all haze, no praise.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We'll let Austin sort that out on the production end, because I would rather be a pastor that loves people.
Look at that. I like it.
Yeah.
The ultimate pastor move.
That's a great.
And let us pray.
Yeah, we didn't even touch music production.
Oh, that's true.
Another time.
That's one of my big ones.
I'm going to get a fog machine for my classroom.
Please do.
And some sick
need
beats,
that.
too.
Yeah, do intros when people come in off the bus.
You'd be the fun teacher.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Do the secret.
Now
handshake
sit down and
with
shut
them.
up. The fun's over. Now we're learning.
Learning is fun, Tyler.
No, it's not.
Then why are you a teacher?
Because you have to do it.
I
That's
see.
what we just talked
Make it
about. The
fun.
administrative piece. You have to do it. We all want to be the loving, cool guy. We can't. Some of us have to do the heavy lifting.
We're going to crack into another episode if we're
Dang
not
it.
careful.
All right, I'm
But
gonna shut up.
sometimes doesn't loving mean I want you to be able to get a job when you're older, so you need to learn to read in my second
Yes,
grade
100%.
class. Like
it is, but again, it is a means to an end. It's not fun in and of itself. Is all. I was trying to say.
Sure. I don't.
Yeah.
So I think that's true in the pastoral. Like loving can also be like, look, you two have been arguing hammer and tongs for sort it out. Like enough. Like that. That can be a loving response too.
That's good.
Okay. I hope we're
All
done.
right. We did it. We covered it all.
Yeah. I think the girls are probably ready to go. So, are we good? Is that a wrap, Austin?
A wrap.
That's a
Cut.
wrap.
Well, guys, that's a wrap on this episode. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, we want to engage in this conversation and continue it with you. So like, subscribe, comment below. You can shoot us an email at churchbites@stjoemin.com. That's churchbites@stjoemin.com. And keep an eye out for live events here in Fort Wayne. We would love to get together and continue the conversation in person, creating a safe space to talk about church and the ways in which it bites.